Okay, and you all can see my screen.
Yes.
Is that right? Okay, great. So we're going to go ahead and begin by working under our Forms tab today in the Form list. So this is the only place that we can access our forms to update them. Right off the bat, we have a couple of different options. So we can search our forms using our search bar in the top right-hand corner. Right now, you don't have too many forms in here. However, if you guys start having a lot of events, or if you have maybe a donation form or anything like that, your form list could get kind of long. So having the ability to search your forms is going to be really helpful as that happens. We can also delete our forms. Now, once a form has been submitted, it no longer is able to be deleted. And we do that because if a lot of these forms are going to tie information to your member's profile. So if you deleted their form submission, it would delete their information out of their profile. So by making them undeletable after a form submission's been created will prevent you from ever accidentally deleting information that's been stored in somebody's profile. So it's more so just preventative.
Okay.
We can copy any of our forms, so that would be really helpful if you all have an event or something, maybe a survey or something like that. Anything that you need a new form for, but it's going to ask similar questions to the previous version of the form you had, you can just copy it and then make a couple of edits to it. So then that way you have a new form you can begin having your members fill out for you.
Okay.
We can edit our forms, and then we can take this form. I love this take this form feature because if you ever have somebody that says that maybe just sends in the membership application and they hand wrote everything in, you can take this form on behalf of them. You can either select their name from your member list, or you can, so like we can proceed as Michelle, and I can take this form on behalf of Michelle, or we can proceed as a new profile and create a new profile in the system. And this way, especially if it's the membership application that somebody returned to you, you can take the membership application for them. It's going to go ahead and create their profile, save all their information in it, and create their invoice, all within just taking that form on behalf of them. Does that make sense why we would want to use this feature?
Yeah. Yeah.
Something else really cool about this is, let's say somebody sent you a membership application on Monday and y'all just didn't have time to get around to take it for them until maybe Friday or the Monday of the next week, and you don't want them to know that it sat on your desk that long, you can prevent confirmation emails from going out. So that way they're not notified once you've completed their application process. So I appreciate that. Okay. We can, of course, unpublish our forms by double-clicking published, or publish our forms by double-clicking the unpublished. As forms are submitted, we'll be able to see how many form submissions there are, and we can review. So I love this because you can just take a quick glance and see how many form submissions there have been for that particular form. Same thing with event registrants. So anytime you have an event that you create a form for, the number of event registrants will pop in here. Then the next item, if you want to create a new form from scratch, we could just create a new form by using this green button in the top left-hand corner. We can add in our form name. So we could call this our, maybe our test form. We can put in a form description. Now this is just internal information, meaning your members will not see this. This is just for you guys to see, to know what form it is and any information you need to know on it. I'll show you within the form where you'll add the names to the tags to create the names that your members will see for the different sections of your form.
Okay.
So then the body of your form's going to be created of a lot of different sections. I'm going to show you those different sections once we get in the form builder. But the actual body of the form is made up of 3 different sections. So we have a membership section, an event section, and a general section. We can pull these sections in manually. However, we can also tell our system what we're creating, and it'll pull them into our form for us. So that's what these checkboxes down here are for. So if we want the system to go ahead and pull in the membership section for us, we can check that this is used for membership. If we want the system to go ahead and pull in the event section for us, we can check the event checkbox.
Okay.
If we want to use this form perchance or for maybe membership and event registration, we can check both of them. And then that's going to pull in both sections for us. And if we don't want to use this form for either, So let's say it's a donation form or sponsorship form or a survey. It's not a membership or an event registrant form, so we just want to leave them blank, and that'll just bring a general section into the form for us. So like I mentioned before, if you guys don't check these boxes correctly, that's okay. We can pull in the sections manually as well, and I'm going to show you how to build the form manually, but using these checkboxes, the system will do it for you. Okay. From that point, I would just save, and that would create our form for us. So I did this earlier with our membership application. I went ahead and created the form itself. And right now, we just want to edit it. Before I go into the form builder, do you all have any questions about this area?
I don't. Do you?
I don't. I'm good.
Okay. So once we edit this form, this is going to bring us into our form builder. The form builder is created with two different columns. So we have a left column and a right column. The right column is where all of our sections are going to be. And it's kind of like, I like to say it's like a rough draft of what our form will look like. So it's not pretty yet, but it has all the elements that we'll see on the front end. The left column, you'll notice up here at the top, has three different tabs. The Form Settings tab is where we're going to set all general settings for the form as a whole. Adding form elements, the second tab, is how we're going to add items to our form to create the questions we're asking and the information we want filled in. And lastly, this Element Properties tab. Everything within our form over here in the rough draft area, we can click, and it has some specific customizable elements to that specific field. So the section, which is this white section here, you'll see it ends down here at the bottom. This is our login section. I'm going to explain this section in a second. But we can look at the properties specific for this section, and then it's going to show us all the things we can customize. This text box has some customization, so we can click it, and it shows us the element properties for that box. Same thing with the new users box. So we can edit the label text. So anything we add in our forms, we can set those specific element properties to, as well as any sections of our forms will have some additional customizations we can make as well. Okay. To kind of give an overview of the different sections of our form, I want to review the right-hand side and all of these different sections. The login section is where your members will either log in with their user information, or if they're a new user, they'll create new login credentials to log in with. If it's a membership application, it's obviously going to create a profile in the member type that they choose. If it's for an event or donation or anything else, when they log in with their existing credentials, it'll take them, to their profile. But if they need to create a new login for that, for anything other than a membership application, it's going to create a prospect profile for them. So you can still save their information in a prospect profile. Okay. We can, if we look at the element properties for the login section, you'll notice we can turn off the login section. However, and I always say like 10 times out of 10, we want to go ahead and leave this on, because if we turn it off, the system's not going to recognize the member, and it won't be able to save the information into the profile for them. In addition, it's just going to come through as an anonymous form submission. So if it's like an anonymous survey that you're taking, you might want to turn the login section off. But other than that, you always want to leave this on.
Okay.
We can also have multiple submissions. However, I have not come across a form. And I mean, if it's a donation form, then yeah, they can make multiple submissions. But if it's a membership application or event registration, you always want to leave this turned off, because you don't want somebody applying for membership twice. And you wouldn't want somebody to register for an event twice. So you would just leave this toggled off. A couple other different elements in here. So I mentioned that this name that we created is not what your members see. Your members will actually see this name. So anything that's on the little tab up here is what your members will see. So if you don't like the fact that it just says login, we can look at the name and we can say login section, and then you'll see it update in the tab. And this is what your members will see.
Okay.
So anytime you want to update the name of one of your sections, we can just click on the properties, look at the element properties, and then update the name. Same thing for this text box. If you don't like this text that we have in here, we can edit the label text. This brings us to our WYSIWYG editor, which we learned about last time, and we can update the text in here. And same thing for new users. Okay.
So edit label text takes you to the WYSIWYG.
That's exactly right. Yep. And all I did was just click on, like if you say, I kind of want to make some edits to what this says, you just click on that field. It's going to take you to any options that you have for element properties. For these particular text boxes, there's not as many customizations as what some of our other elements have. But in this case, it will let you edit what it reads.
Okay.
Do you guys have any questions on the login section?
I don't think so.
Okay. Next, we have our membership section. So this has some items that came over with the section, meaning it's this text box, these top 3 text boxes, and these 2 drop-downs here are built into our membership section. This is going to be where your members will have the drop-down to choose what member type they want to be. So once all of your member types are in here, we'll be able to use this drop-down box, and they'll be able to choose what member type they're applying for. We can also use our membership application as a membership renewal. However, I don't think that we'll be using this for your members because they'll be able to, well, we've discussed some other things that we're going to do with them. But for your basic members, they can take the renewal application as to renew their membership is what I'm trying to say. But they can also just pay their membership dues straight from that notification they're going to get from the system. So I don't think that they would be using this form for that purpose.
So the membership application that's online is for new members only.
Correct.
And so when they go to log in, pay their bill, they're going by the form that they received.
The email, the notification email that they've received.
The invoice, right?
That's right, yeah. And they don't even have to, the great thing about this is they won't even have to log in to pay those notifications they're getting from the system. They can actually pay that invoice straight from that email that they receive because it'll be attached to the email and they can pay it right from there. Okay. All right. Same thing with these text boxes. If you don't like what they say, then you can edit, but I always see associations just leave these as is. So choose a member type below to join as a new member. If it remembers them, or if they log in with login credentials, it's going to recognize them as an existing member. And if they are up for their renewal period, it will allow them to take this application as renewal. But once again, I don't really see your members needing to use this application for that purpose. So it's an option, but it probably won't be used. Okay. So then we can choose from our drop-down of our member types what member type they would want to be. And then this brings us into the body of the questions we're going to ask. You'll notice we have an organization information section, and at the bottom we have an individual information section. For the member types that you have that have organizations affiliated with them, this is where that information will be filled out to create the organization's profile. Down at the bottom is where, you know how I think I've explained to you, like an organization, there will be an organization profile, and then there will be linked members to that organization who are benefiting from the organization paying the membership dues. Those linked members get to benefit from them paying their dues for them. I think you have a couple of examples of member types like this.
Yeah.
And so this is where we would create the organization's profile, and then we would create the linked members profiles down in the bottom. And we can create multiple linked profiles. And we'll walk through that on the front end so I can show you how it'll look. Then we have our summary section. So once again, we can look at the element properties for our summary section. We can rename this if we want it to be something different. We can turn this on, and then we can decide what we want, what fields we want our members to be able to double check. So this is just going to show all the fields of information we're asking for, and then it'll show all the answers that they supplied to make sure they supplied the correct answers. Okay. Then we have our payment section. The payment section we can't do anything with. This is standard. However, we can look at the properties, and we want to make sure that Our payment processor is always chosen, and this is going to be authorized.net. We always want to make sure that an invoice template's been selected. And then if you want your members to be able to pay later with an invoice, we would turn this on, which is what we would want to do for y'all. Okay. And then lastly, we just have our confirmation section, so we can look at the properties for the confirmation section. We can edit this text by selecting this box. Once again, you'll see this edit confirmation page that'll bring up our WYSIWYG editor. And then we can also set up an email that'll go out from the system as well, confirming that your member has applied for membership. Something I love about this confirmation email that we can send out is we can, you can write in here whatever verbiage you would like to add in. This is just our very, standard basic verbiage. But we can use our merge data tool, and we can merge data from the form. So we can merge data from their profile, and we also have form data. So I like to bring in things like submission total, which is how much they owe or paid. And I also like to do the submission date. And then what you can do from here is BCC Mary Lou yourself or Michelle. So that means when this confirmation email goes out, you guys will get one as well. And this data merged information will be helpful to your members, but it will also be helpful to the two of you because you can keep an eye on who's been applying, how many members are applying, what membership type they're applying for, all that kind of stuff. So this is something that I really love about our system. Okay. Do all these kind of like the overview of each of these sections make sense to y'all?
Yes, they do. Mm-hmm.
Okay, great. Something else I want to point out is you'll always see on the admin side this $100. This is just as an example. This will populate with the correct amount for your member as they're taking the form. So this is only to show you on the admin side as an example where the money will filter in at, as to showing how much they owe.
Okay.
Okay. So the next thing that I want to peek at are form settings. So I mentioned that these are just general settings for the form as a whole. We have things like the form name, which I mentioned is only for internal use. This is not what your members will see, because if you're a member, your members will only see what's in these sections. So there's that section label, this section label. Same with form description. The alias, just like what we saw when we did our content training, is what will come after our /. So gfas.memberclicks.net/membership-application. That would be the URL for them to go to the application. If you wanted to change the name, you could do that. Okay. We can publish our form, which we want to do so that your members can see it. If this was an event, we could enable a form expiration date, but since it's membership, we don't need to set a form expiration date. You'll notice these group permissions kind of everywhere throughout the system. If you remember, we've talked a little bit about the difference between member types and groups. So every time a member type is created in the system automatically kind of in mirror image creates a group. The member types are what determines your members' dues amounts and membership period. The groups determines the permissions they have in the system. So they're two different things, but you'll always have a member type that's the same as a group. A big difference between the two is I can only be in one member type at any given time, but I can be in multiple groups at any given time. So the reason this is a useful resource for our system is if you have a board of directors, you may want to create a separate group for board of directors, and then you can assign different members into that group, and that will give them specific permissions as far as special content they can see, and maybe we can set special things we want to ask them on our form. So right now we can set what member types can even see this form. We only have one member type in here right now, but we would be able to decide what member types can see this form, and then also at every individual field, we can set what member types see those individual fields as well. So we can hide specific questions from some of your other member types, which we will use. Okay. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. We also can set up date-based pricing. Once again, this wouldn't be used for a membership application, but it would be used for an event registration form. So this is where we could have early bird event registration pricing that we could set up. We can set up a discount code, and then once again, discount codes are not for membership. They'd be for an event or general form. And then this forward URL is the second your member hits submit on the application, generally it'll take them back to the home page of your website, but if you want them to be redirected to a different site or somewhere else within your site, we can just put up that URL, and once they hit submit, it'll redirect them to whatever URL you've put into this box. Otherwise, it's just going to take them back to the home page of your site. Okay, how do you guys feel about these overall kind of general form settings?
They seem fine right now, but like you said, when we get in the thick of it, I mean, just eyeballing it right now, it seems fine.
Okay, yeah, once you get your hands in here, you'll come up with a lot of questions, and that's just, you know, how it goes and what it's all about. So it always seems so easy, and when you look at it, you're like, oh, I can do this, and then and then you try, and you're like, wait a second. It took me a while to really learn the ins and outs of forms. So
this it's fairly simple, self-explanatory, but it's finding this. You know, it's like I know this thing can do this, but it's finding where to go. You know.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. So then the next thing that we can do, so we've gone over our general form settings. We've looked at the different sections of our form, so now we're kind of ready to start building out the body of our form. So we would do that by using our Add Form Elements tab. So we've looked at General Form Settings tab, Add Form Elements tab, and then we know that element properties are going to be specific customizations we can do to a specific element. So these are the elements all in here. We have 4 different types of elements that we can add to our form. We've talked about our different types of attributes, and these kind of parallel to that. In fact, when we set up, when we went through looking at attributes in our database training, this kind of parallels with what we're looking at here. So we've set up our built-in attributes. Those are those things that we've seen across the 1,600 associations we've worked with that we know you guys will collect on your members. And so we can pull in any of those built-in attributes from this section here. Then we have custom attributes, which right now I just have tonnage total for previous year. Of course, we're going to create more of these once I've received your database, because I'll be able to look at your column headers and determine what custom attributes I need to add. That's just going to create any of those additional forms you've collected on your members so far. So anytime we use a built-in or custom attribute in our form, we can be sure that it'll plug that information into our member's profile. That's how we're going to save information from the form into the profile. Then we have form fields. A form field is this, you're looking at the same things we used when we created our custom attributes. However, when we use them at the form level, this means it's not going to save the information in the form. I'm sorry, in the profile. It'll only save it in the form. So you can access the information if you look at the form submission itself, but if you go into your member's profile, you won't be able to see this information. So this would be used if you were having an event, maybe a luncheon, and you wanted to ask your members what they wanted to have for lunch at the luncheon. You know, do you want a ham sandwich, a turkey sandwich, or a cheese sandwich? You would give them those options. Now, you don't need to save that information in their profile forever because it's only for that one specific event. And they may want a different selection next time. So we would just use a selection set from our form fields category to collect that information in our form. If we wanted to create a new custom attribute that we didn't see in here and we knew we wanted to save it in their profile, we would just go under database attributes and create a new custom attribute in here. And then that's where it would show up right underneath these custom attributes, and that's how we could tie that information back to the profile. The last item we have are presentation items. So this is exactly what it sounds like. It's just how the form will present itself. This is also where you can pull in the event general and general section. So I mentioned when we first created the form, those checkboxes you could select. If you changed your mind and you said, well, I also want this to be an event section, you could just grab this event section and plug it in. Now it's a membership and event section. Same thing with the general section. Okay. If we wanted to delete these, we could just look at the properties for that section and delete. Same thing for the general section. We could look at the properties and delete. Okay. So now we can kind of start gaining some information that we want to ask from our members. So this is the body where we're going to pull these items into, the membership section. And I'm looking at your form, and I just see that the first thing that you've asked is for the name. That name is built into the section, so we don't need to add that because it's already in here. The next thing that you've asked for is company, and then you say if applicable. So we can ask for your member's company. I know that company is a built-in attribute because it's called organization. Now, if it's a organization member type, it's going to ask for the organization name up at the top. But if it's an individual and you just want to collect their company information, we can plug that down into the individual's information section. And we can change the way this is labeled because maybe the word organization would confuse them, and we could just change this to read company. So right now I'm looking at the element properties for the specific element, the specific organization element, and I'm making some changes. So we've changed the label name. Now you'll notice we have this export name. Whatever you put in the label name, you want to copy over into the export name because the export name is if you have the ability to export all of your form submissions, the export name is going to be the column header in the exported Excel list that you have. So that's what's going to tell you what that column of information means.
Okay.
So next we've asked for address. So I know that address is a built-in attribute, so I'm going to go underneath add form elements because I want to add a form element. And then here are my built-in attributes, and I just want to grab address. If we want to look at some specific element properties for this one specific field of address, then we can click on it. And we can make, by using this drop-down, we can make this required. We can make it not available. In this case, we just want it available. There's that export name that we're going to see in the Excel document. And here are those group permissions we can set. So if we didn't want all of your members to see this field to fill out, we could just check who we wanted to see it. Okay. You've also asked for phone number and, county of residence. So county of residence is definitely something you would want to save in your member's profile. So what we would want to do is go back under database, because I know that we don't have it under our custom attributes field. So we'd go back under our database, back under attributes. To create a new custom attribute, I'm just going to copy what I already have in here. Copy, and then I'm going to make some edits to it. So I'm going to call this county of residence. And then instead of a number, I just want this to be, do you want this to be a drop-down or a text box? Or does it matter?
It doesn't matter.
I think drop-downs are easier to search by. Do you know about how many different county of residences you have in your system? Is it a lot?
Yeah, it is a lot.
Yeah.
Then we can just make it a text box if there are just a ton. Do you ever need to search by county of residence?
No, it doesn't. No.
Is that
Okay.
what the form is, county of residence?
It does. Do you even need to collect that?
Yeah.
I know we usually collect where the landowners, what county the land is located. And that's not necessarily where they're.
Oh, I see. I own timberland in the following counties.
Yes.
Okay. Do you want me to leave off the county of residence?
Or, yeah, because so somebody can live in Florida and own land in Georgia, so they need to know the county of where the land is.
Okay, but not the county they live in.
Right.
Right.
Okay, so we'll leave that off. I also want to go ahead and make sure while I'm underneath database and attributes that my phone numbers are set up correctly. So I'm going to go under phone, and I just need to make sure that phone and cell are asked for. So it looks like right now we have home, so I want this to say main, and then we want cell. So this is going to be what makes these available in our form.
Okay.
I also want to make this, I own timberland in the following counties. I would really like for this to be a custom attribute as well so that it can tie it to the profile. Do you want that to be a drop-down? Do you need to search this information a lot?
They give us that information. Like Michelle and I don't search out.
Well,
no, but I mean, once it's in the system.
Sometimes we do.
Yeah, but Salesforce has a drop-down.
Yeah, drop-down would be.
And so did Access had, or not, well, not Access, but
probably a drop-down.
A drop-down.
So just
okay.
Georgia.
Yeah.
We'll do that.
Okay.
Okay. So now going back to my form list. At this point, I want to go back into my membership application, so I'm going to edit this. And then I'm going to continue to build out this form. So I'm going to go to my form elements, and I want to add phone and cell. So I know that those are built-in attributes under phone, so I'm just going to grab and drag. And now there's my main, and you'll notice that the main is available, but cell says not available. So we want to use our drop-down and make this available as well. Now they're both available. Then we have the email. So add form elements. I know that that's a built-in, so I'm going to grab email. Okay. Then we're asking for the different counties the timberland is owned in. So we go back to form elements. This time I'm going to look under custom, and then here's my custom attribute, and it'll be a drop-down of whatever options we've put in here for them to drop down from.
And there should be an option to do multiple counties as well. I don't know if that's
perfect. That's super easy for us to set up, and I went ahead and created it that way. And then when we load in our members from the database, whatever they have in that field, it's going to go ahead and start creating the section or the selections they have to choose from for us. Okay. And they can choose more than one in their profile and on the form. Then the next question is you have recruited by if applicable. So I kind of feel like this shouldn't stay in the member's profile. It's more just for the form submission, but what do you all think about that?
So you're right. I mean, it's not, but it doesn't have to be in their profile.
No, but we can always go back and look if we need it, right?
That's right. That's exactly right. Yeah.
Because they get bonus points for if they're recruited by by like board member or something.
That's fine.
Yeah. We can always you can still search on that information and look for it. So to just add it as a form field, this is a great segue for us to look at the different form fields that we have. So we just want to say recruited by if applicable, and then they'll need to write in whatever text they have to write in. So we would use the text option, but I want to go ahead and walk through what all these options will look like on the form. So we did walk through these when we set up some custom attributes and looked at those. But to kind of revisit it, we could say country, and this is going to give us all the different drop downs of all the countries, and we have some specific things we can change. So if you said, where have you traveled in the last year? Once again, we want to make sure that we pull that into our export name. So if we export these form submissions, we know where that information is coming from in the column. And then here are all of our element properties. Should this be required? Should they be allowed to choose multiple selections? Do we want all of our members to see this field? Right? So this is where we could look at those different element properties. And then of course we can also delete this. To continue working through these form fields, we have date. So that's just going to be asking for a specific date. So you could say birth date. And then once again, we have these additional element properties. So I think it's always best if you just select that field and then look at all of the element properties, all of the available customizations you have to that field. Going back to form elements, we have file. So you could say, whoops, I'm just grabbing and dragging. We could say, please upload your resume. Okay. And then they could upload a file. For image, we could say, please upload a headshot. Once again, we can make this required. Now we have number and selection set. So these are a little different. Number we can drag in. And let's say that for this, maybe we had a conference and you said, how many tickets do you need for our upcoming conference? And so in this case, we would want to maybe make this a monetary amount. We'd want to be able to put this on our invoice somehow. So we would just turn on that this is a price field. And you'll notice that gives us a box where your member can fill out how many members would be coming to the conference. And then this times 1, we can update this one amount right down in here. So maybe each ticket for the conference is $40. So if they're bringing 5 members, they would write in the number 5. It would multiply it by 40, and that would be the amount listed on the invoice. We can also change this to a currency input instead of a number input. So currency input, we would just check this. Now it's just a straight area where they can input an amount of money. So instead, this would be great to be used for a donation amount. And they can just fill out however much they want to donate. Okay? Anytime you're using a field on a form that's collecting money, we need to make sure that we're setting up the correct payment processor and revenue account because we need to tell the money where it's going. So we can select this option, and then we would choose our payment processor. The payment processor for the form will always be, the payment processor will always be the same in the fields as it is on the form. However, we can change our revenue account. So once all of our revenue accounts are in here, we can select what revenue account this money is going into. We can also update how this reads on the invoice. So this would be the invoice line item. So we don't want it to say how many tickets do you need for our upcoming conference. You would just say ticket amount for upcoming conference. Or you would just say total donation amount. And that would be how the line item would read on the invoice. Okay. Continuing to move forward, we also have our selection set, and this can collect money on our form as well. So we could say which conference days, will you be attending? Goodness, attending. We would always want to bring it into our export name. And from here we can add selections. So we can add selections and option limits. So maybe there's a Monday conference, a Tuesday conference, and a Wednesday conference. Something really awesome is if you have a limited number of seats, you can limit how many times these are offered. So if your Monday conference, you have 40 seats available. Tuesday conference, it's in maybe a bigger venue, you have 70 seats available. And Wednesday is a little bit smaller, you only have 25 seats available. The second that each of these options are chosen, the number of times we've limited them to, they'll be grayed out, and so they won't be able to be selected after that. Okay, we can save these. We can make this required, which takes away this none option, because that's not an option if it's required. And we can turn this into a price field, once again, just by toggling on price field. And now you'll notice that we can add selection sets, option limits, and base pricing. So now it's going to bring me right back to this area, but I can add in the pricing we want. So maybe it's $60 for the Monday conference, it's $70 for the Tuesday conference, and maybe it's $400 for the Wednesday conference. We can put in those different prices, save, and that'll show up on our form. Something else that we can do with this is add member type pricing. So if I select add member type pricing, now we can select our different member types and we can set up some different pricing for them. So maybe prospect public, we would add that member type. Here's our prospect public, and maybe they have to pay $500 for each of these conferences. And maybe the Forest Product Company members, they only have to pay, half price for each of these. because they get a discount because they're a member. We can go through here and select each of our members, all 14 of our members, and add different pricing for each of those. And then we can save. So when that member is logged into the form, whatever they're logged in as is the pricing that they'll see on the form. If they're not logged in, they'll see the public prospect pricing on the form. They will not see that other pricing options are available to other members. Okay?
Okay.
Great. And then once again, we would want to make sure that we're setting up our where this money is going, and then or how we want this to read on our invoice. Okay. And then we can always change the display type. So we've looked at this when we did our custom attributes as well, but if they're only allowed to choose one option, it would either be single select radio or single select drop down. So here's our example of the drop down. If they're allowed to choose multiple, so maybe they can choose all 3 days of the conference they want to go to, then we would do a multiple select option, either check boxes, which now lets us choose all 3, or there's the multiple select drop down, which allows them to choose up to 3, all 3 as well, but it's in a drop down. Okay. Do you guys have any questions on how to use the number or the selection set form fields?
Not today.
Okay, awesome. You guys sound like you sound like you're understanding it. And like I said, my biggest goal is just for you guys to walk away knowing you can do all this stuff, implementing it. Our help team can always help you do when you're creating a new form.
I'm confident today.
Some other form fields we can use are our state. So this is just going to give us all those drop downs for the states. We can add Canadian provinces, military addresses, and U.S. territories. And they can select, multiple. And the states can either be full name or they can appear as the abbreviation. Okay. And then lastly, this text box. So this is what we want to use on our form because we're asking who they were recruited by, if applicable. So I would just grab that information into my text box. We're going to update how it reads. And then they'll fill out the text box who recommended them. If this needed to be like a paragraph of information, like please let us know why you want to join our association, then you can, instead of using a text box display type, you can use a text area, and this will give them an unlimited space to type. Okay. All right. So then after we've added all of the fields that we want to add to our form, at this point we would just want to make sure that our summary section is set up the way we want it to be. We would want to make sure that our payment section is set up the way we want it to be, meaning that our payment processor has been selected, our invoice template that we want to use has been selected, and then lastly we just want to make sure that our confirmation email and notification are set up the way we want them to be. So we can look at the properties, edit that confirmation email, or select that field and edit the confirmation page that you see. Okay. Now I'm kind of ready to look at this on the front end, but before I move to the front end, do you guys have anything that you're wondering about while we're still on the back end of things?
Not at the moment.
Great. So I'm just going to delete these areas that we don't need. So we're just going to delete. And then we're going to go to the front end of things. And I can delete the rest of these a little bit later. Actually, we're almost done. Okay. So to take this form on the front end, and I'm going to send these instructions to y'all, but I'd like for you to test this membership application and make sure it looks the way you want it to. But what you'll do is you'll have to make sure you're logged out and use a separate browser. If the system recognizes you as an admin at all, it will not allow you to take the form. Then you would just need to grab the first part, and I'm going to supply the link for you so you don't have to do this, but if you ever need the link to your form, always grab the first part of your URL at the top and then the form alias. So in here you'll notice I'm just putting this in after my /, and that's my URL. This is going to take me to the form, and this is exactly what your members would see when filling out a new membership application. It's either going to prompt them to log in, or it's going to ask them to create a password and username if they're a new user. So that's I'm going to walk through as a new user. And I'm a million% positive I've already used this. So then I would register. Now it's going to prompt me to put in my password. It can be as simple as the number 1. We can create the profile. And now it's going to take me to the body of the form. Oh, what? What did I do wrong? Oh, it's because I didn't set a. I'm sorry. It should just let me update this. There we go. So now I'll be able to choose, and this drop-down will hold all of your member types. And then I can put in the organization name. So this would be information about the organization if it is an organization member type. If it's not an organizational member type, then it won't ask me for organization information. Once we fill out the organization information, if it's applicable, if it applies to that particular member type, then it would bring us to our individual section where we can fill out our individual information. I can put in my home address, my main phone and cell phone. It brought over my email address from when I created the profile. Something really cool about these forms is if this was an event registration form, if your member's already a member with you, all of the fields you're asking, it's going to pre-fill in for you. It's going to auto-populate all that information if it's already in the profile, so they don't have to fill it out again. We have our, I own Timberland in the following counties. This would have a list of all the drop-downs that are available. We don't have any in here yet, but it will have all the drop-downs, and then recruited by if applicable. Now, if there are additional linked members that need to be created, we would just create linked profile. And then we have a new section that's going to ask the exact same questions as we asked for the first individual's profile. And we can do this multiple times. So they can create as many linked profiles as they need to from here. If they accidentally created an extra one, they can hit cancel and remove. Right?
Mhm.
Okay. And then from here, we would be able to just, after we've created all the profiles we need to, we would just select next. It's going to bring us to our summary page. So any information I filled out in any of those fields, it'll give us the total amount that we owe, and that's going to populate once we have all of that set up with your member types, and then we could submit, which I don't want to do right now. When there's a money amount in here, it's also going to give us the option to either pay now or pay later with an invoice. So they can either pay online or they can send you a check, whatever way works best for them. Okay, how did that process look to y'all?
Very simple.
Good. Good. Awesome. Okay. Well, that kind of summarizes my forms training today. Of course, as your different member types are in here, and then I can set up your member type pricing and all that kind of stuff. After I've created all those, this will look a little bit more realistic for yourself and for your members. But for now, this definitely is a good way to go through the basics.
Okay.
And I know we have our social community training. Is it later this week, I think?
Yes. I think it's Friday.
So we have that one.
You're so good.
We'll be okay.
Yeah, we'll be okay. Yeah, we got it.
Yeah. My Wednesday and Thursday aren't too crazy, so if there's any way you could get that database to me maybe Wednesday.
Okay.
If it's Thursday, I think I can still get it imported as well. But that would be awesome if we could have it imported before our last training. If not, that's okay too.
We'll do my best. Thank you so much.
Okay. Absolutely. No stress. All right. Well, do you guys have any additional questions for me today?
Well, Adrian, if we can't get it to you, the database, or did you want to move Friday's meeting? You know what I'm saying? Like you need the database to.
We definitely don't have to have it in order to do
Oh, okay.
the last training. We definitely don't have to. The only thing I would want to do is if we don't have it, um, we'll have like a go live call, and then we're also going to have a graduation call. So we're going to have 2 more calls once we complete our trainings. When we
Okay.
do our go live call, we can really use that time to review your database, where all your members are, how I have everybody set up, how I have the member type pricing set up, and I have all that information, so I think I'll be able to get it created no problem. But we'll definitely have time to review all that information together to make sure everything looks correct to you guys.
Okay. Thank you.
Sounds
Okay.
like fun.
Okay. All right, wonderful. Well, if y'all think of any questions, please just let me know. If you think of any other forms you would like for me to create, go ahead and send them my way. Otherwise, I just look forward to talking to you guys on Friday, and we'll be sending you a follow-up email here in just a minute. And I'm going to list just some of those things that I'm still missing. And like I said, I know that I'm missing the database, and that's totally fine. I'm just putting it in there for my knowledge as well, moving forward to make sure I got
Oh, and
myself on track.
my desk
Mhm.
right, Adrian, and I'll send you that, I'll send you the letters.
Awesome. Those notifications. That'd be great.
Okay, and the tags. I have all that. I have everything.
All right, you're so good. You guys are awesome. Okay, that sounds great. Well, if you think of any questions, let me know. Otherwise, I look forward to talking to you guys on Friday. I hope y'all have a great week.
And you do the same. Thank you, Adrian. Have a good
Thank
afternoon.
y'all. You
Okay.
too. We'll talk to you soon. Bye.